We were in Japan on the island of Honshu, driving on the highway with its huge cypress trees buried in masses of giant bamboo. Above was a scattering of blossoming trees as we entered the Hinosan Tunnel. Along the way, we stopped at a roadside rest area. It was time for lunch. We had the option of going to Starbucks, where we could get one of those yummy, healthy sandwiches, or possibly a really unhealthy meal with 4 beef patties, French fries, and a sugar-filled Coke. If one's into really unhealthy, you can enter a small glass cubicle for a smoke. Then there are the ubiquitous vending machines. Everywhere in Japan there are vending machines that often contain both hot and cold items in the same device. In the end, we went to the food court and found a great deal on a large bowl of ramen with shrimp for only 880 yen. But first, you must go to a vending machine and pay for your selection. Then you get a ticket to give to the server, who hands you your order. At this time, 880 yen was worth about $8.80 for a huge bowl of soup in the roadside rest area. After lunch, we found our bus with our guides Ryoko and Chiaki, with our very handsome bus driver. We headed back out onto the very smooth and well-engineered highway and proceeded to our destination, Kyoto.
Nijo Castle, one of 17 World Heritage Sites in Kyoto, covers about 70 acres of meticulously maintained opulence. Tokugawa Ieyasu, founder of the Tokugawa shogunate, ordered Nijo Castle built. It was completed in 1626. We walked into Nijo's forecourt with its stunningly beautiful Karaman gate, with an undulating barge board, a design originating in Japan. Its shape is often called cloud lift. Recently refurbished, the gate shone with gold medallions and brightly painted birds and animals. The gate led into Ninamaru Palace. This was the Kyoto residence of the Tokugawa shoguns. The Tokugawa shogunate ruled from Edo, now called Tokyo, but used this as their Kyoto residence. Kyoto back then was the home of the powerless imperial court. No shoes or photography inside. In 1867, at Ninamaru Palace, the last Tokugawa shogun relinquished power back to the authority of the imperial ruler, the emperor. American Admiral Matthew Perry had forced Japan to end its isolationist foreign policy. Japan began to modernize from the feudal shogunate to become the imperial Meiji government. Finally, Emperor Meiji abolished the samurai class, and life in Japan changed forever. From its outside, you can see the room where the transfer of power from the Tokugawa shogun to the Meiji emperor took place. Underneath the room, you can just make out an interesting floor building method that allowed monitoring of people walking in the palace. Called nightingale floors, fasteners sing when someone walks on the floorboards, alerting to possible intrusion. Attention to every detail is apparent and the gardens created between 1603 and 1868 are meticulously maintained, with the gardeners often using scissors to trim the trees. Green is in abundance, mixed with boulders and water features to create this peaceful environment in what at one time was a very turbulent place. After being shown where to meet, we had free time to wander the castle grounds. We decided to see the Hanmaru Palace that is reached after crossing the inner moat. Hanmaru Palace was lived in by the 14th Tokugawa shogun. He was married to the Emperor Ninko's daughter. They reigned as the power of the shoguns was in decline and before the transfer back to the emperor. Marrying the emperor's daughter was a shrewd move on this shogun's part. Fire has always been a big problem with old wooden structures. Nijo Castle is well prepared with firefighting equipment. We went on to an overlook to view Hanmaru Palace and its gardens from above. Making our way to our meeting point, we passed a camellia hedge with its last few blooms of the season. This was followed by an ancient Zen garden of rocks, moss, and pebbles.
We no longer had our giant bus. We now shared taxis to go to our Kyoto accommodations, the Mitsui Garden Hotel. A quick stop, and then off to the nearby Sarah Buffet. Among the many choices was made to order sushi. Oh yeah, now you have my attention. Condiments including seaweed and a large offering of cooked dishes were laid out before us. Well, maybe I need some more sushi. This was our view from the Mitsui Garden hotel room. Down to another buffet, this time for breakfast. By now, we were used to seeing green salad come up first in the lineup. Off in shared cabs, we were dropped off to walk through and experience a Kyoto residential neighborhood. A poster announcing the new Star Wars movie was adjacent to a shrine with tiny deities in their colorful dresses. The ubiquitous vending machines at a local convenience store also had nearby aproned deities. We stopped at the doorway of an old renovated Japanese house with a private entry garden and carefully chosen appointments. Our hostess greeted us for a Japanese tea ceremony experience.
Okay. Well, welcome. I'm Michael.
I'm Harumi. Welcome.
And
I'm Lou.
okay.
Lou?
Okay.
Yes.
So, tea houses have all names, and our place is called Kanchoan, which means to be at ease without worries. So please be at ease, okay? Tea shouldn't be torture. I try, but I can't promise. Okay, good. So this is an example of a very small tea room. It's a 3-mat tea room. The smallest tea room you can actually build, it's 1 3/4 mat. So it's really, really small. You would have probably 1 guest or maximum 2 guests in this kind of rooms. Here we can fit in 3 guests very comfortably. If everybody knows what to do and know each other very well, and it's a cold winter day, you can also squeeze in 5. But bottom line, the rules are not that important. In Japan there's still about 40 different schools of tea active, and what's correct in one school it's wrong in the other one. So even we tea people can't agree what's the proper way to make and drink the tea. Yes. Okay, during the day we use a gong with a low sound because outside the light is bright. So you have a yin and yang balance. And at night we use a bell with a high sound because now it's dark. So today we only have a part of it. So we will have the usucha, the thin tea part. So each of you will get a bowl of tea. And usually if I have 5 guests, I use maybe 1 or 2 bowls. So the first guest drinks the bowl comes back to me, I clean it and I make tea for the next guest. That would take a little bit too much time today. So we will use for each of you a different bowl. And in tea you get the sweets always before the tea, because the host wants you to enjoy the texture and the flavor of the sweet, and then the texture and the flavor of the tea. If you have it together, it's just one big blend, and it's not the same. And this kind of sweets are always fresh made, and they're made by hand. And this one is from a small sweets maker here in the neighborhood, and he is now in the 4th generation.
Zen Buddhism was the primary influence in the development of the Japanese tea ceremony. Evidence of tea in Japan dates to the year 815, when a Buddhist monk returned with some tea from China. In 816, by Japanese imperial order, tea plantations began to be cultivated. Around the end of the 1100s, tea preparation using powdered green tea called matcha was placed into a bowl, hot water added, and the tea and hot water whipped together. The actual preparation of tea doesn't begin until the host reveals the tools and cleans them in front of the guests before using them. The cleaning of the tools is aesthetically done with concentration and highly graceful movements. Always important in all Japanese tea ceremonies is the graceful posture of the host and the aesthetic value of the way things are done during the ceremony. Our host, Michael, a Swiss national, is a tea master. In 2007, he was granted the tea name Sosi in recognition of his preeminent status. We admired the varied textures of the walls, ceiling, and decor, accompanied by the gentle sound of water simmering over coals in the charcoal brazier embedded in the tatami mat floor. Specific smokeless charcoal is used, preventing the need for any special ventilation, called matsu-kazi, or the sound of wind in the pines. The gentle hiss adds to the atmosphere in the tea room. Our tea master went through the various steps in the highly stylized tea ceremony, preparing a bowl for each of us guests. The water boiled in the embedded brazier as the steam gently dissipated into the room. The ladle is made from bamboo, as is the narrow, thin tea scoop, although they may also be made of wood or ivory. The whisk is also made from bamboo. Michael told us that the small blue and white porcelain tea caddy is a rare antique, a special gift he made to himself. A crock of cold water was used to refresh the one boiling in the brazier, each movement choreographed for our tea master's own special performance.
So, this is all yours.
All that for just you.
And the original piece also has a small hole here, so actually there was a slash on it, so you can hang it from your belt and carry with you. And the old pieces probably were made from wood and then lacquered, but tea people liked the shape, so now we have the same style in Torii. And because you're traveling around, I know not on a horseback, but still I thought it's a nice bowl to use today.
Mm-hmm.
Visiting the Zen temple complex of Daitoku, we discovered a multitude of temples. These are famed for their historical associations with the Japanese tea ceremony, and also for its beautiful Zen Buddhist temples and gardens. Entering through the main gate of Kodo Inn, you turn right and walk down a long flagstone path through a bamboo forest. The path turns 3 times, going through 3 gates before entry to the temple itself. This is designed to give you a sense of passage from the outer, secular world into the deeper, spiritual, contemplative world within. The exquisite old tea room with its ancient faded paintings sits near an interior walkway to a famous Zen garden. Zen gardens are meant to be contemplated slowly, at your ease, not for rushing. Otherwise, all that rock, moss, raked gravel is going to start blurring together in your mind, and you may get, as the saying goes, templed out. Beyond the sensitively placed windows, it's a dry landscape Zen garden of Koronen, characterized by its simple elegance. Meant to look like waves and water surrounding islands in a large lake, sits a moss-covered seashore with one perfect peony to accent the scene. There's also an array of incredibly vibrant Japanese maple trees. It was once again lunchtime as we left the temple. Nearby, a Zuzin restaurant was waiting for us. A restroom break gave us an opportunity to pass by the kitchen, busy making our vegetarian lunch. This eating place specializes in Zen Buddhist vegetarian cuisine, famous for its creative use of vegetables, mushroom, tofu, and rice. In a private room, we lined up with a multitude of beautiful red lacquer bowls. Most sat on cushions on the floor. We tried to guess what the delicate little morsels might be made from. After we finished our vegetarian meals, the red lacquer bowls nested perfectly into an artistic pattern.
That afternoon, we went to another World Heritage Site, and perhaps the most famous Zen temple in Kyoto, the magnificent Golden Pavilion built in 1397. Sitting next to a lake with its amazing gold leaf coating, a phoenix atop, this was once a villa that was converted to a Zen temple. This is the ticket to enter the temple gate. Wow! We descended the temple stairway, dazzled by our experience. At the bottom is a shrine where you can burn incense, ring a gong, or light candles as offerings.
Put the in there, get everybody cold, runny noses, and all that. I haven't had the picking yet. You have to put it back out. あれでも同じ1ヶ月やったら7時間ぐらいな。そりゃそう。はい。
You could even be driving if you only had a steering wheel.
Just hold your hands up like you are driving.
And I wanted to say konnichiwa, but it didn't come out.
Oh, well.
I first got on the...
We were traveling with our friends Dave and Pat Lamb. They, along with Ron and Judy Zipfel from our tour, had decided we would take our free time this day for one more fabulous location. First came a Shinto shrine at the entry. Painted in bright vermilion, we wandered to some racks holding wooden wishing plaques. Found at every Shinto shrine we visited, the plaques are sold, allowing visitors to write their wishes and leave them at the shrine. We posed with our pals, Pat and Dave, under the vermilion Torri Gate at the shrine, then looked at the small Inari-kami, or spirits in the shape of foxes. Kami are worshipped in the Shinto religion. We stopped for a few minutes to take a photo of some women in kimono, and they kindly agreed to have their photo taken with some of us. Then we entered the total otherness of a grove of giant bamboo.
Our Mitsui Garden Hotel didn't even have a bar. As a result, we had taken to buying wine and snacks at the local convenience store and creating our own bar in the lobby. Dave, Charles Bush, Ron, and I used whatever glassware was available to share with Pat, Linda, and the two Judys prior to a night out in Kyoto for dinner. An Italian restaurant had been discovered by Charles. We all trooped down the street after 2 weeks on tour for a not Japanese restaurant. Two young men ran their pocket restaurant with its very small kitchen, making amazingly beautiful Italian-style food in the heart of the ancient capital of Japan.
The following morning, Kathleen announced to us through the wireless guide system which taxi we could share on our next outing. We divided up, and off we went once again through downtown Kyoto to the suburbs. We were dropped off at the end of a long walk called the Philosopher's Path. This led past a series of shops to the Silver Pavilion, another World Heritage Site, this time built in 1482. Created as a warlord's retirement villa, the pavilion became a Zen temple following his death. Lush magenta peonies greeted us at the entrance to the Zen garden, whose most famous feature is the intriguing Moon Mountain. This carefully formed pile of sand is said to symbolize Mount Fuji and is the essential element in the garden. Originally, the pavilion was to be covered with silver, but this was delayed by war and never realized before the owner's death. The pavilion then came to represent Japanese wabi-sabi. Wabi implies simplicity, quietness, or understated elegance. Sabi is the beauty or serenity that comes with age, when the life of an object is evidenced in the patina and its wear. This Japanese aesthetic signifies that beauty is imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. That there are three realities: nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is ever perfect. We climbed a path to see the garden, the Silver Pavilion, and the city of Kyoto from the hilltop. We were back at the shops that sit near the entry to the Silver Pavilion. A bit of free time to find some souvenirs. There were a profusion of kimono and fans. Then we spied some great hats. Van must have a couple of those. We perused the food stalls, but lunch was included this day. So we rejoined our group and continued along the Philosopher's Path. Created in 1890 as a trail alongside the Lake Biwa Canal, it has shops, restaurants, homes, and several temples on its route.
We came to a long road leading to one of the largest Torri Gates in Japan. This was built in 1895 and leads to a vast Shinto shrine complex. This complex was built as a reproduction of the ancient imperial palace first constructed in 797. The people of Kyoto were shocked and depressed after the capital was officially moved to Tokyo by Emperor Meiji in 1868. This construction was a symbol of the revival of the city. This is a 5/8 scale of the original imperial palace. Emperor Meiji had very little to do with the basic decision of making the move of the capital from Kyoto to Edo, later renamed Tokyo. He had just turned 15 when the last Tokugawa essentially resigned as shogun in 1867. His advisors controlled pretty much everything the emperor did for at least the first half of his reign. This move was never mandated by any legal proceedings. It was rather a recognition of an already existing reality. Edo Castle itself had been the Tokugawa, meaning Japan's administrative center, since the 1600s. Meiji's advisors' move to Tokyo meant that they could take over the Tokugawa power base.
There has been a shrine at this location since 869, documented by a procession through the streets of Kyoto to ward off an epidemic that had hit the city. This was the beginning of the Gion Matsuri, an annual parade that has become world famous. The parade continues to take place every July. The names on the lanterns are of the sponsors of the parade, a tradition lasting over 1,000 years. Thus, Yasaka is a popular tourist destination and a place to buy souvenirs. The Shinto Suzu, or bells at temples, are for calling kami, the spirits that bring positive power and repel evil. Besides, hearing the pellets inside the Suzu is a fun sound to make. We had actually entered the grounds of the shrine from the back gate. We were walking toward the front gate. We passed by the many stalls offering trinkets and snacks to the crowds of visitors at the shrine. The front gate reveals that we are in Gion, a district of Kyoto that originally developed in front of the shrine to accommodate the needs of travelers and visitors. Gion subsequently became Kyoto's most famous geisha district, filled with shops, restaurants, and the tea houses where geisha and maiko, geisha apprentices, entertain guests. Running directly up to Yasaka Shrine is Shimogawara Street. As if on cue, two young women in kimono were standing at the beginning of the street. We turned back to see the front entrance gate, then walked into the Gion Geisha district. These old pictures, taken in 1910 of geisha and maiko apprentices, show how shockingly young these girls were. Not the romantic picture that we often think of today. Perhaps it's just the wearing of the traditional kimono that draws us all in, this time with a cute cat purse. We wandered down the back streets filled with machiya, traditional wooden townhouses. Many now function as restaurants. Some machiya are tea houses where the geisha, traditional female entertainers, perform. Geisha are skilled at arts, like playing classical Japanese music, dancing, and poetry. Some people believe that geisha are prostitutes. This, however, is false. The term geisha is two Japanese words, ge meaning art, and sha meaning to be employed in. The most literal translation of geisha to English is artist. Geisha are very respected, and it's hard to become one. Becoming a professional geisha in Kyoto usually takes 5 years of training. Hanami-Koji Street is a very popular area of the geisha district. It has distinctive lantern lighting and is a nice and expensive place to dine, with restaurants serving Japanese haute cuisine and other types of local and international meals. The number of geisha in Gion has substantially declined in the last 100 years. However, it's still famous for the preservation of traditional architecture and entertainment.
We passed by Kyoto Kabuki Theater. Minamiza is Kyoto's premier kabuki venue. Begun here in 1610, the current theater, built in 1929, seats 1,086 spectators. We followed along with our group through downtown Kyoto, walking to a big shopping area on Shijo Street. This brought us to the Kamo River. Kyoto is the end of the 5 historic highways in Japan. We had begun our trip in Tokyo at Point Zero, the marker for the beginning of the historic highways. We were now at the end in Kyoto and a new bridge. The old bridge recorded in about 1834 by great Japanese woodblock artist Hiroshige. The large yellow building is the Tokasai-kan Hotel, built by an American in 1926. It has the oldest elevator in Japan. We were now in the shopping district on Shijo Street. We were walking back to our Mitsui Garden Hotel. We were to have a free afternoon this day, so I checked on directions before we departed with our group. We went to the Kyoto International Community House. It was very new and had a very large and wonderful rock in its courtyard. I modeled one of my souvenir hats next to a pink, flowering dogwood. In the reception area of the community house, there was a beautiful ceramic mural that I really liked. We were there to attend a lecture by an American expat, Rebecca Teal, who told us about Japanese no theater and masks.
But this is the mask called the okina or hakushikijo, which is worn by the no actor in the ritual called okina, which is performed at the beginning of the year and at special celebratory occasions.
Rebecca told us about No, a classical Japanese drama that's been performed since the 1300s. It's some of the oldest Japanese theater still regularly performed. No is based on tales from traditional literature with a supernatural creature transformed into a human. These masks are for those roles such as demons, animals, and beautiful women. Linda's favorite mask is that of Zo-onna, a beautiful woman. We had tried on masks similar to these in Kanazawa. Linda had been looking for a Zo-onna mask. Now she wanted one more than ever. This was our final group teaching experience with our Road Scholar guides. We had a very sad goodbye speech from gentle Ryoko, very organized Chiaki, and super knowledgeable Kathleen. A marvelous lunch was waiting for us at Ryokan Chichiyo. The reception area was filled with Japanese artworks representing various styles and periods in history. The owner showed us to our dining room with tatami-matted floors, low tables and chairs, and exquisite screens lining the end of the dining room. Everyone was in a great mood, even though we knew our tour was coming to an end. By now you'd think we'd know what was sitting before us at lunch, but there are always a few surprise packages to delight us. There was that healthy seaweed, and deep-fried tempura including lotus root. We were given big pots of tea, and then our hostess opened up the big ceramic bowl to reveal large blocks of tofu in broth with seaweed garnish. We used our little wire ladles to scoop out our portions. Pat, Dave, Linda, and I were going out for some sightseeing for the afternoon, so we put our shoes back on and left to get a taxi.
My name Koichi Wasa. Koichi.
Koichi.
Yeah, my first name Koichi.
Koichi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we usually add sun. And a more polite way of sun is sama. So Ben-sama is the highest way of saying
I have
Ben-sama.
Ben-sama. Okay, I want to be the highest. Ben-sama.
Highest Ben-sama. Sama
Okay.
is the highest.
Usually I'm the lowest, so I want to be the highest.
With that hat fan, you are the highest.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
right.
Koichi was our super friendly taxi driver who dropped us at the end of a lane where we walked along with some school kids.
Hello.
Our first stop was at an ancient Buddhist temple. temple had a reproduction of an ancient map that showed that the complex hasn't changed much in the nearly 800 years it stood here in Kyoto. The main hall sits next to a long wooden covered walkway that looked very similar to one used as a location in the movie Memoirs of a Geisha. A water garden could be seen, along with a Zen garden of carefully raked pebbles in a check pattern. We never saw anyone raking a Zen garden, but they surely achieved one of their goals of creating a miniature, stylized landscape through carefully composed arrangements. They're intended to imitate the essence of nature, not its actual appearance, and to serve as an aid to meditation about the true meaning of life. Many Japanese Zen gardens were created in a period roughly the same time as the Renaissance in Europe. In Japan, this was also a time for the flourishing of culture that saw the maturing of no theater and the tea ceremony.
Another water garden is near the entrance to this temple complex. Vivid azaleas sat next to the water, a perfect place for a souvenir picture of Linda and Pat. There were excavations being dug as we came up to the longest wooden building in the world. Its length is 394 feet. This extremely long building had a small open area where we got a glimpse of its contents. Sanjasenjin Temple holds 1,001 statues of Kannon, the goddess of mercy in Buddhism. Maybe the most impressive assembly in the world. These Kannon are life-size. They have 40 arms each, individually made. They are carved from Japanese cypress and clad in gold leaf. The cannons stand behind guardian deities. Originally made in 1164, some were destroyed in a fire, recarved in 1249, about 800 years ago. Imagine how long they've stood here. The main cannon contains 1,000 arms and 11 faces. She and all the others are considered a Japanese national treasure. All that amazing antiquity had made us thirsty. We stopped at a 7-Eleven convenience store to get some water. Japan has more 7-Eleven locations than anywhere else in the world, maybe because it's a Japanese corporation. 7-Eleven has about 60,000 stores in 18 countries.
If you thought seeing over 1,000 gold-clad cannon was awesome, our final temple complex this day surpassed the 800-year-old statues in the longest wooden building in the world. Greeted by large Inari kami, we enter the grounds of Fushimi Inari-taisha. Vermillion paint covered just about everything at this temple. Small wooden Torri Gates were for sale. The card nearby suggested writing a wish about the safety of one's family. Pat wrote her wish and hung her small Torii on one of the racks nearby. We then proceeded to a map that we've marked with a black star to show where we were then in the complex. There are an amazing 1,000 Torri Gates at this temple. The earliest were built in 711. Here you may not only see, but have the awesome experience of walking through the tunnel of Torii. The Shinto kami represents both male and female and is thus androgynous. Inari is the Shinto god of rice. Foxes are thought to be Inari's messengers. Inari appears to have been worshipped here since the founding of the shrine at Inari Mountain in 711. More than 32,000 Shinto shrines in Japan are dedicated to Inari. Modern corporations revere Inari as their patron kami, with shrines atop their corporate headquarters. The Torri Gates along the entire trail are donations by individuals and companies. The cost starts around $4,000 for a small-size gate and increases to over $10,000 for a large gate. Here, the names of patrons are painted in black on one side of the 1,000 Torri Gates. The four of us proceeded through the first section of the Vermillion Tunnel of Torii. Experiences like this reinforced how fortunate the four of us are to be able to travel and encounter other cultures, and hopefully understand some of their traditions.
Linda and I left Pat and Dave and were off on an errand. We had learned where no masks were sold in Kyoto. A large store on Seijo Street had a huge selection of dolls and recreations of various miniature no performers. They also had no masks. One antique showed a price of 395,000 yen, about $4,000. Yipe! This one is around 15,120 yen, about $150. Linda decided perhaps it was now or never. The saleswoman wrapped the mask in multiple layers in a wonderful Japanese way. The no mask became ours. We returned to our hotel, checked out, and said a sad goodbye to Pat and Dave and our traveling companions. We then took a cab and checked into the Royal Park Hotel near the Geisha District. We had dinner and went to bed.
The following morning, we took an early local commuter train out to the suburbs. Several stops outside of downtown, we came to the Toei Kyoto Studio Park. A bit like Universal Studios in Hollywood, this is one of the places where Japanese movies and TV shows are made. This time, instead of cowboys and Indians, you get samurai and ninja. Instead of Old Tucson and the OK Corral, you get a village much like the ancient post station of Narai on the Nakasendo Way, where we had been earlier on our trip. That wasn't Miss Kitty from Gunsmoke walking down the dirt street, but it was one of the reenactors that wandered around the village. So many people wear traditional kimono that we weren't always sure who was a visitor and who was a reenactor. So we just mixed with everyone and hoped we didn't offend. These women showed us their lovely hair just outside a hairstyling shop in the village. Down a side street, we came to a house with a hearth and its traditional bamboo pole with its fish that allows control of the hook over the fire. There was a shrine and a bridge with the familiar finials atop the posts. It was time for the production in the theater, attended mostly by school kids. Old movie posters lined the walls as we entered. Oh, look, there's one filmed at the longest wooden building in the world. These were familiar storylines, universal themes. understandable even without descriptions. After the performance, I posed with a samurai warrior. Then we walked back through the village, enjoying our morning at the studio. Van had our final fun event where he got to surf under the Great Wave off Kanagawa. Cool, dude.
We returned to our hotel and then a shopping arcade just one block away. If you're looking for another shrine, you can find one right in the midst of the arcade stalls. This time, you could write your wish on soft little Buddhas. We came upon some schoolgirls wearing fun masks and taking pictures of each other. They used our phone and we exchanged selfies. Nearby was a stall selling those cat purses we'd seen. Cats are greatly desired and very expensive in Japan. This one cost about $2,580. At the Kyoto Bengal Cat Forest, an adult can buy 30 minutes of petting and playing with a kitten for about 600 yen, or about $6. Or you can buy a big Hello Kitty and a kimono in Zori. Mice are available too.
I wanted to shop in a giant Japanese department store. Takashimaya was the biggest that was nearby. There were children's books about Godzilla on sale at the entrance. The 1945 nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were so shocking that it took until 1954 for Godzilla movies to be created as a metaphor for the nuclear weapons. Godzilla was a mutation, an expression of the nuclear threat. As the film series expanded, some stories took on less serious undertones. We went to the women's section for the kimono department I had come to see. Everything you need for a woman's traditional Japanese outfit is available at Takashimaya. Beautiful kimono were lined up above perfect zori. Need an outfit for your kids? They were nearby. How about a bridal outfit? Matching purses and zori were on display. The famous Mikimoto pearls are also available. As we left Takashimaya, we encountered some young women wearing flags on their backs. We recognized this equipment from Japanese battle films we've seen. In battle, a flag designated which side the fighter was on. Now the flags are worn to alert passers-by to receive flyers about various events. We returned to the shopping arcade. We planned to have dinner there. We also wanted to find a gift for our son Jay, something uniquely Japanese. We found a stall that might have just the thing. They sold custom embroidered jackets and shirts. We found a great shirt. Van tried on the largest size. The smaller stature of most Japanese meant finding a shirt was probably a no-go. Too bad. Great souvenir shirt.
Video?
Yeah. Maybe our kids would like a great Japanese knife. High-quality Japanese cutlery is partly the result of the breakup of the samurai class and the banning of wearing swords. The majority of samurai swordsmiths refocused their skill to cutlery production, and these Japanese knives are the result. I was very interested in the beautiful copper cookware, handmade and gleaming. Maybe I could add some to my collection. But we'd come back to the arcade for a meal. In the food area, they were making taiyaki, the fish-shaped waffles with sweet bean jam inside. They're a very popular Japanese treat. Finally, we stopped to watch through the window handmade noodles being created for the many diners. The Japanese were universally kind and friendly. The many cooks toiled away in the obviously efficient kitchen. How could we not stop here to have Japanese noodles for our evening meal? We left the marvelous shopping arcade to return for the night to our Royal Park Hotel.
On our last day in Kyoto, it began to rain just as we got out of a taxi. This was our last temple experience. Another World Heritage Site, Ryoan has been active incredibly for over 1,200 years. Cherry blossoms had given way to blooming wisteria, a plant native to Japan. We entered with a bit more knowledge about Zen Buddhist gardens. In the dimly lit and beautiful entry sat a small model of this revered garden. The garden is one of the finest of the surviving ancient Zen gardens. Large rock formations are arranged amidst a sweep of smooth pebbles, said to facilitate meditation. Adjacent to the garden, soji doors and tatami-matted rooms had exquisite ancient paintings of haunting landscapes. A fountain set low in the garden meant one had to stoop, or perhaps be humbled, to get a refreshing drink. The nearby water garden was filled with water lilies, Japanese iris, and wisteria, an opportunity for a great picture of the two of us in Japan. Through the mist, we saw the wild wisteria hanging in the trees next to the river, as we walked along trying to stretch time in the exquisitely beautiful country of Japan. We returned to our hotel to pack our things. Then we went out to wander around the Ryoan-ji district to find a restaurant on our last evening in Kyoto.
The next morning, we checked out of our hotel. We were reluctantly leaving Kyoto on the bullet train, the Shinkansen, from the truly amazing Kyoto train station. Designed by architect Hiroshi Hara, it was constructed in 1997 to celebrate the 1,200-year anniversary of the beginning of Kyoto as the ancient capital of Japan.